InterRail. For some, a simple form of travelling, for others a mere rail pass, but for many, a way of life, a milestone in their lives, a rite of passage into adulthood, an event that changed the way of thinking of millions of Europeans. This is our history.
Den fornemmelse kan jeg godt lide, at folk simpelthen ikke har en anelse om, hvor i verden jeg er.
It was the feeling of freedom.
Yeah.
It was a feeling to be grown up.
For me, it was a really important time of just being free and meeting people and just traveling.
Jak si to člověk jednou vyzkouší, tak víceméně je chycen.
Ich muss keine Planung machen. Ich hasse Planungen eigentlich. Das heißt, ich bin sehr frei zu reisen.
Kada ideš iz jednog grada u drugi, kada trčiš na voz da ne zakasniš, tražiš peron, tražiš svoj kupet.
Criavam de facto ali ambiente muito curioso de interação entre gentes muito diferentes.
Którzy chcą zwiedzić naszą Europę, bo teraz naprawdę mamy Europę bez granic.
To see the contrast among Europeans, that was astonishing.
I really had the chance to travel all Europe with one ticket.
I love having these tickets, and I'd like to have another collection of another 5 or 10.
Niet iedereen kent het, maar ik denk van dat ze het wel leuk zouden vinden als ze het kennen.
InterRail is for everybody, all ages, if you are young in mind.
In order to tell our story, one has to travel back in time to the very first year of InterRail, 1972.
The International Railway Union had its 50 years jubilee and wanted to have a good offer to the youth of Europe, then made InterRail available for the youth under 21 years. They could travel on InterRail the summer 1972.
In that first summer, thousands of young backpackers used this railway offer to explore Europe by rail for the very first time. One of them was Niels Iversen, a 17-year-old Danish student from Aarhus.
Og det var året før. Så bestilte jeg allerede, da vi hørte første gang, det kunne lade sig gøre. Og det kort, jeg fik, der stod der nummer 25 på. Det største problem var, at der var ikke rigtig nogen guidebøger. Folk i jernbanevæsenet vidste ikke, hvordan kortet fungerede. Så jeg skulle forklare dem og have brochurer med, for ellers så sagde de, hvad er det?
For a small fee, Niels and almost 5,000 other interrailers in 1972 spent a full month discovering the European continent by simply jumping from one train to the other.
Der var et tog til Wien, så kører vi der til Wien. Eller der var et tog til Paris, så kører vi til Paris. En gang tog på den 4. tur, der tog jeg ned til Grækenland, så hurtigt som muligt. 2,5 døgn gennem Balkan. Ned og sendte et postkort fra Athen. Så kørte jeg tilbage, og så hurtigt som muligt op til Skotland. Og sendte en uge efter et postkort fra Skotland. Så min familie anede ikke, hvor jeg var.
Already in its first year, InterRail 1972 was a huge success. Those who had missed out on this European adventure quickly heard about it and regretted not boarding a train that summer.
And this was meant to be only offered this special year, but it was so popular, so there was a lot of letters written to the railway administrations, and they asked that this InterRail offer to continue. It has now been an offer for 40 years.
In the mid-70s, the age limit was first extended to 23 years and later to 26 years of age, thereby expanding the number of young adults that explored Europe by rail at the time. This also allowed some former interrailers to repeat their travel experiences.
Først sagde jeg, det ville jeg aldrig nogensinde gøre igen. Men jeg kunne ikke rigtig undvære det der med, at man sætter sig ind i et tog, og så kører man bare et sted hen.
So, InterRail slowly became a phenomenon and was here to stay. In the years that followed, it became firmly established as the thing to do for European youngsters.
you'd go to the train station and you'd see all these kids with backpacks and acoustic guitars and stuff, and you just want to go. And I wanted to go. I wanted to, you know, see the world. And it was the cheapest, coolest way of doing that.
I really still remember the day we bought the ticket. It was maybe the greatest day. And we were smiling and we were so happy. And there was a drunk man who stopped us and said, "Oh, you look so happy. Are you so happy as you look?" "Yes, we are." And we were totally excited.
Ungewöhnlich natürlich. Damals war ich 17 Jahre alt. Das war der erste Urlaub, so richtig lange, ohne Eltern. Und war schon ein bisschen ein komisches Gefühl. Ich war auch noch nicht so locker wahrscheinlich, wie ich es heutzutage bin beim Reisen. Und war schon ein bisschen ein komisches Gefühl, alleine loszufahren mit ein bisschen Geld in der Tasche und einen Monat lang weg von zu Hause.
And you'd never have any plan. That was the great thing. It wasn't organized. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go see France and I'm going to go to Portugal. It was like, I don't know, I'll take the first train going south and then see what happens.
It was on the 23rd of June 1987. Packed up my bag and I set off for a trip really to try and cover as much of Europe as I could in 30 days. I used this pass from the first possible moment. You can see how well it's been stamped. And in the corner I managed to record all the kilometers that I travelled. So there we go, the last page was filled on the last day. Nearly 12,000 kilometers in the month.
Den letzten Interrail-Trip habe ich 1981 gemacht. Und danach, also da hatte ich dann schon 15.000 Kilometer, sage ich mal, runtergerissen. Und dann habe ich ein paar Jahre später in einer Zeitung von einem Schweizer Reisebüro über einen existierenden Rekord gelesen. Und da wurde beschrieben, wie der das gemacht hat. Und dann dachte ich, das ist eigentlich ziemlich langweilig. Also der hat so Sternfahrten von Lörrach aus gemacht. Und dachte ich, also ich kann das eigentlich besser und ich kann eigentlich noch mehr Kilometer fahren. Dann habe ich gesagt, ich will diesen Rekord brechen. Und dann habe ich mich halt hingesetzt. Es hat dann halt noch sehr viele Jahre gedauert. Eigentlich bis zum letzten, 1987, da war ich fast 26. Und es war das letzte Mal, wo ich Interrail fahren konnte. Da habe ich gedacht, jetzt musst du das machen. Habe die ganzen Kursbücher gewälzt, habe die Route zusammengestellt, einmal außen an Europa entlang. Das war so mein Ziel, ein bisschen was Interessantes machen. Und ja, der Rekord besteht jetzt seit 25 Jahren.
Saving time was not the only priority. By travelling on a low budget, Interrailers also learned how to survive the longest time by spending the least money.
Foi a primeira vez que me vi em férias praticamente sem dinheiro. E é claro que não desisti, continuei. Ainda fui para o norte da Noruega e para as ilhas Lofoten. E praticamente eu lembro-me que eu cheguei a Narvik, no norte da Noruega, e tinha cerca de o equivalente a 100 escudos portugueses, mais coisa menos coisa. E andei mais cerca de 10 dias, ainda para a Europa.
And I earned money playing guitar. So I'd be out traveling for like 6 weeks and usually come home with more money than I started out with, you know.
I don't have that much money now, so you spend money in a very slow mood, you know. Most of the time I slept in all the stations, you know, Italy, in Greece, you name it.
Wenn meine Mutter manchmal gewusst hätte, wo ich da übernachtet habe, dann wäre sie, glaube ich, nicht so begeistert gewesen. Aber gut, damals war ich jung, da habe ich mich nicht so sehr um Sicherheit gekümmert. Es hat eigentlich immer alles sehr gut funktioniert. Ich hatte eigentlich nie negative Erlebnisse.
Fra midten af min anden Interrail-tur sov jeg kun i togene. Og aldrig liggevogn, aldrig sovevogn, kun i togene.
The night train from Copenhagen to Oslo had a quite bad smell because of all the Interrailers with their dirty socks.
Soon, Interrailers realized that this new way of traveling was not only great for exploring Europe, it also allowed travelers to meet other Interrailers from other countries with whom they could share their travel experiences and make new journeys. Interrail became a synonym for freedom of travel and adventure, but above all, of cultural interchange among European youngsters.
I just meet people, travel with them for a while, meet some other people, travel with them for a while.
People as normal are very curious about the place where you come from, so it was quite easy. I was alone but never alone. I travel always alone, but I never was alone, never.
I got talking to two girls at a table, and they said to me, come on, let's go to the restaurant car. I said, look, I haven't got the money for a restaurant car. They said, no, this will be our treat. I said, oh no, look, you're interrailing. They said, no, please listen. They said, when we travelled through Germany, we met a guy, and he bought us dinner, and he said, this is my treat because I'm going home, and somebody along my trip paid for my dinner, and now I'm returning it to you. So they said, we want to buy you dinner as to keep the chain going. Now at the end of that trip, I came here to St Pancras station. I went to the cafe and I found two German girls who were travelling, and I asked them where they were going, and they said Nottingham, which was my hometown. So I said, let me buy you a meal. And I explained the story to them, and I said, please just do one thing for me. When you come home, do the same. So I hope somewhere in Europe this chain of good deeds is still carrying on.
For some people, this interchange became something more.
We met in Aveiro in the beginning, right? 85, I was starting my InterRail. Lisa was on her way back to Denmark.
We didn't have more time in our ticket.
But we keep in touch. At the time, we used InterRail to travel, you know. So Lisa went to Portugal and visit me, and afterwards I went to Denmark and visit her twice, I think.
I don't know how many times we did that train trip, but we always use the InterRail ticket actually.
That's why. 6 Interrails and 3 Interrails.
Or maybe more, I
don't know. Maybe more, I don't know.
All in all, InterRail's contribution to the unification of Europe remains undeniable.
The feeling of being European, Inter have done a lot about European identity, you know, to put people together. And I think if you speak with the, other Europeans who have done that trip together, I think the way they see it's quite open and very humanistic.
This new sense of European identity knew no borders. Even at a time when Europe was divided by the Cold War, the International Railway Union managed to keep its neutrality. Countries from both the Western world and the Eastern Bloc were members of this railway organization. This allowed interrailers from Western countries to explore far behind the Iron Curtain.
Uma espécie quase de marco histórico. Cidadão português de 17 anos a passar a cortina de ferro para o outro lado. Querem aquilo mais de uma forma emocional do que como uma situação que pudesse gerar algum medo. É claro que depois havia aquele controle todo, entravam os polícias no comboio, pediam-nos os passaportes e levavam os passaportes em sacos de plástico para sítio que ninguém sabia onde era.
I had a full inquisition from this really butch border guard, this woman who would just ask me everything. She went through my bag, she went through my dirty laundry, she went through my medicine bag, asking me in really sharp questions what everything was.
Nemyslím si, že by ty lidi měli tehdy problém. Jo? Policie měla daleko jinačí starosti, než honit někoho s baťohem.
Aquela sensação de arame farpado que nós, quando saímos daqui sem conhecimento daqueles países, tínhamos, de facto, nunca senti.
In 1989, the Berlin Wall tumbled down, and all over Eastern Europe, democracy was established through bloodless revolutions. Many of these new nations soon joined the International Railway Union, thereby expanding the InterRail network.
Byly České dráhy pasivním členem InterRailu na nějaký rok, nevím přesně, ale pak zase z toho vystoupili. Od roku 90 byli aktivním členem. Vlastně jsem využil té možnosti si zakoupit takovouhle jízdenku, protože to opravdu otvíralo vlastně dveře do Evropy. Bylo to v roce 1992. První cestu jsem absolvoval z Prahy do Paříže. Tehdy se jezdilo ještě přes Cheb, to už je opravdu historie. Naše angličtina nebyla ještě tak dobrá, takže k nějakým rozsáhlejším rozhovorům se nedostávalo. Ale právě, že tady byla tendence s tím InterRailem, s těma baťohama, ty lidi viděli, kdo jak cestuje, takže většinou byli společně v kupé a tam samozřejmě docházelo k rozhovorům a bylo to strašně fajn.
Nevertheless, even with a larger network and with more travelling over Europe than ever before, InterRail's popularity started to decline in the early 90s. This was partly due to the increase in budget travel offers and the trend towards exotic international destinations. In order to compete, the railways created a zone system. It basically consisted of the member countries being divided into geographical zones within Europe by means of 3 passes covering 1, 2 or 3 zones.
The offer became more complicated, but it also made it possible for people to buy a cheaper product if they didn't want to travel all over Europe.
Another novelty were the child discount passes to stimulate Interrail as a family vacation. Then, after a successful test in the Scandinavian countries, the whole rail network decided to abolish the age limit, opening up the Interrail passes even to seniors.
It was really a huge success. And it was not only those a little bit more than 26 years, it was people in their 50s, in the 60s, and the oldest one I have registered was 82.
This move increased the number of passengers as both first-timers who never had the chance to Interrail before and veteran Interrailers now had the opportunity to repeat their experience. But the times had changed. With the introduction of high-speed trains, travel costs increased to the disappointment of the budget-minded Interrailers.
Funkčnost Interrailu byla stejná. Rozdíl byl v tom, že vlastně na první Interrail, když člověk vlezl do vlaku, tak nemusel platit už vůbec nic.
Der var ikke alle de der frie tog, man bare kunne sætte sig ind i. Nu var det TGV og ICE og så videre med tillæg og reservationer og fanden og hans pumpestok.
Všelijaké poplatky, které musí znova platit. A prakticky to je každý druhý vlak, pokud člověk vyloženě necestuje nějakým vlakem, který jede krátkodobou vzdálenost.
Det er jo ikke det, jeg rejste for.
But regardless of the decrease of its popularity compared to the 70s and 80s, Interrail remained a key form of travelling for many European youngsters, providing its contribution to European integration. A good example was the European Rails of Peace project, started in Italy to assist young victims of the Balkan Wars in the 90s to travel to the West by Interrail. Marco Amici, an Italian veteran Interrailer himself, realized how Interrail could overcome this issue.
The idea of this project came in 2005. It was the meeting where the president, the director of the European the Stability Pact for Eastern Europe was making reports, and there was a striking that 90% of youth from Serbia never left their country. With my association, with the support of also other international organizations, we started a project called European Rails for the Balkans. The aim of the project was to provide youth coming from the Balkans with a visa and with Interrail tickets, and to allow them to travel freely in Europe.
European Rails of Peace i namijenjen je za studente iz Srbije, Kosova i Bosne i Hercegovine. Znači radi se o peace building projektu koji u stvari ima namjeru da poveže mlade ljude koji dolaze iz zemalja koje su zapravo susjedi, ali koje još uvijek žive tu neku stvarnost koja nosi teške posljedice ratova i konfliktata iz prošlosti. Cijeli koncept InterRail načina putovanja je upravo taj koji ti daje najveću slobodu. A zapravo projekt European Rails of Peace upravo želi da razbije one granice koje možda fizički više ne postoje koliko postoje zapravo nekako u nekom simboličkom prostoru i koje postoje mentalno u glavama građana tih zemalja.
During the 90s and the start of this century, Interrail kept going through changes. In 2007, the zone system was abolished and 2 simple types of Interrail passes were introduced, the Global and the One Country Pass. But the true revolution was the introduction of first-class tickets. If Interrail primarily had been a second-class backpackers product, suddenly adults with proper suitcases found their way into the European trains.
Interrail is not only for backpackers with a backpack and low budget. You can be an Interrailer with a suitcase and high heels and stay in good hotels. It depends on your budget.
These new passes renovated the popularity of Interrail. Little by little, it created a new type of traveller, and Interrail continues to grow every single year. Nevertheless, Interrail veterans have a specific view on modern-day interrailing.
viele Jugendliche und aber auch Ältere halt mit Rucksäcken. Das heißt, Rucksäcke sind heute kein Kennzeichen mehr für einen jugendlichen Reisenden, auch nicht unbedingt für einen Interrailer. Insofern ist es heute schwer, denke ich, einen Interrailer so als solchen zu erkennen. Früher hatten wir halt nicht so viele Möglichkeiten, uns zu informieren, wie es heute gibt im Internet mit irgendwelchen iPods und iPhones und so weiter. Und ich denke mal, dass das etwas auch die Kommunikation tötet, weil keine Notwendigkeit mehr da ist, mit anderen Reisenden in Kontakt zu treten und Informationen zu bekommen. Das war früher sicherlich anders.
Myślę, że nie, bo ludzie, którzy jeżdżą na Interraila właśnie chcą się komunikować z innymi, chcą poznać lokalne kultury i łatwo jest nawiązać kontakt.
My kids don't know if there is anything like InterRail.
Children of today, I think they are a little bit different. Everything has to be so perfect. They can't sleep in
like we have done.
We slept all over. I mean, we didn't care about hotels or things like that.
En soms slaap ik op een zitplaats, soms in een couchette. En soms ook gewoon, ik heb al eens op een luchthaven geslapen. En ook soms is in het station nog niet echt, maar wel soms al eens de nacht doorgebracht in het station. En dan op de eerste trein 's morgens uitgeslapen.
But it's good to have that element of chaos and surprise. And when I think of, travel these days, especially with young people, we were talking about young people, everything needs to be really, really kind of safe. And it's not just go. And that was cool.
Ja, als ik op Interrail ga, ik maak bijna nooit meer een reisplan. Toen ik 14 jaar was, maakte ik wel altijd een reisplan van wat ik ging doen. Maar nu tegenwoordig, ik stap gewoon op het terrein en ik zie wel waar ik uitkom.
Przyjemność z Interraila zostaje, bo za każdym razem mamy wolność Interraila. Możemy wsiąść w każdy pociąg, pojechać gdzie nam się podoba.
When asked if they would do it again, as in the 70s and 80s, regardless of the differences between now and then,
yes. But I will probably not live in the station
not sleep in the
somewhere.
station this time, but we're actually thinking about it,
It's a very beautiful way to travel because you see so many things.
Kroz alpska sela ili kroz ravnice gdje možete vidjeti kako se uzgajaju neke kulture, pšenica ili suncokret.
Tak určitě. Jo, ještě furt je co poznávat a tohle je úžasná jízdenka, prostě, která je využitelná maximálně.
InterRail. For some, a simple form of travelling, for others a mere rail pass, but for many, a way of life, a milestone in their lives, a rite of passage into adulthood, an event that changed the way of thinking of millions of Europeans. Each train we took, each kilometre we rode, each person we met, each station we slept in, adds a new line to our 40-year-old history. And the story goes on with a new generation ready to climb on board.
If it wasn't Interrail, it was at least in Paulo, as it is today. In the state of mind, maybe I'm still an Interrail, I keep my sense of curiosity about other peoples and cultures.
In my life, I have met so many people. I want to know the identity of my people.
The Interrail lifestyle, the sense of freedom and of just going to places, of chaos and spontaneity, that has kind of stayed with me, or I hope it has.
Who am I? At times I ask myself, and where do I come from? Once again, I ask.
Interrail was an experience where I could get out of my own home city, see a lot of the world, but actually I was a very shy teenager, and by travelling and forcing myself into those interactions, it gave me a lot of self-confidence.
Interrail pro mě byla vlastně otevřený dveře do Evropy.
e cammino per le vie della città, dove ritrovo tutte le mie identità.
Este intercâmbio de culturas, o espírito de aventura, o passar por algumas situações complicadas e ter que lidar com elas, foi algo que me ajudou muito a moldar a minha personalidade e a fazer a pessoa que no fundo eu sou hoje.
Ci sono, a volte mi domando, è da qui che vengo, altre volte io mi chiedo.
InterRail hat zumindest den Grundstein gelegt für meine Reisebegeisterung, ja, und für meine Offenheit gegenüber anderen Leuten. Das kann ich definitiv sagen.
Ma davvero non importa. Sei spagnolo?
Carapapa, ¿quién eres?
Io che te importa, otra cerveza, por favor.
Are not persons that make travels, but travels make persons.
Sorry, it's so like my English.
What InterRail means to you?
Freedom. Frihed.
Sloboda. Da.